We good to go? Okay, we'll call today's meeting to order. Jen, will you do a roll call, please?
Tom McDonald,
Here.
Len Tucci,
Here.
Jennifer Finley,
Here.
Jim Molitor,
Here.
Carol Langford, Terry Pitts, Bing Matt, Ellie Bundy, Martin Charlo. He's running late. Mike Dolson,
I'm here.
James Steele Senior.
Thank you, Jen. Well, as always, we'll start out today with a prayer. Terry, could I ask you to do a prayer this morning?
Creator, we are so blessed to be here today. We ask that those that are unable to attend and are traveling, that they'll be watched over and kept safe. We ask that we'll be worthy to receive guidance from the Spirit, that we'll be able to be mindful of our decisions and that we can make good decisions, listen to the needs. We ask that our children, as they head to school, will be watched over. We ask that those that are suffering, that they'll be comforted by friends and family. We ask that all of our programs will have a bright day. The sun that comes from Camas Prairie, that it will brighten our day and enlighten our hearts. We say these things in the Creator's name. Amen.
Thank you, Terry. All right, we have minutes from the 7th, I believe, for your review. Morning, Martin.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to approve the minutes of February 7th with any corrections.
Motion by Ellie to approve the February 7th Tribal Council minutes with any corrections. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Terry, seconded by Mike. Any, all those further, well. Oh, you already made the motion, that's right, sorry. Okay. It must be that sunshine, yes. Motion by Ellie, seconded by Terry. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ellie. All right, we have our agenda. Before you, we have our first walk-in is Bill. Is there any other changes or additions to the agenda? One more. Yeah, go ahead, Bill. Okay. Bing wants to report on the district meeting last night. I have a couple updates for folks. Any other additions to the agenda? Martin?
I'd like to give an update on yesterday's meeting. and
Sounds good.
Relay some information.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, so we have 2 walk-ins and 3 updates. Any other changes to the agenda, additions? Seeing none. I entertain approval for today's agenda. Motion by Len, second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, let's do our internal updates first. Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last night we had a district meeting up in Arley and we had Chris Jansen, Patricia Hibbler, Patricia Couchet, and Mary Rose Monjo and Seth Makepeace up there and doing some presentations for us last night and they all did real well, especially with the dump. I had a lot of questions about the dump issue and Rich did, he stated what he had to say about what was going on with the dump and so people know what they had to do and where this was going. So they had issues out with the dump being closed and not opening on time and things like that, and they was brought up. So Rich heard that all from the people up there, so he knows what. I guess he's going to talk to the county about it and find out if they can make sure that these dumps and whatnot are open. Water settlement and that Seth reported on yesterday was what the K Canal and the groundwater studies and everything else that he talked about up there. That was quite a long conversation and presentation that he did with the people up there, and they all seemed to enjoy that. And and questions were asked about the groundwater naturally from the residents up there that live on the north side of the canal up there. So there were some questions about it, and Seth did a pretty good job of answering all that things for him. So they pretty much got a lot of information out of it from Seth last night. Tricia and Hibbler and Patricia Couchet, they were questioned about the work that their applications and whatnot that's been put in for work on the houses up there for the elderly, and them not getting back to the elderly about if they were approved or not approved. That was a big issue with the residents up there. That they put in their applications a while back, and a lot of them still haven't heard if they've been approved or not from the elders program. So a lot of controversy about that and whatnot last night. So hopefully that pretty soon we'll get contractors and whatever they need to get started on this work. But they stated that was the biggest holdup, that the contractors wasn't able to get the contractors on board to get this work done for them. So anyway, that was quite a little discussion. Mary Rose reported also too on the she talked with Rich about the dump issue too. I forgot to mention that when I talked about Rich's discussion. Mary Rose had some information about what she was doing and things up there. We had Troy will conversate later on towards the end of the meeting about the gravel pit that was up there and going to be for Riverside up there that Mr. What's his name? Damn, forgot his name. Anyway, Riverside contracting up there with the Grapevine. Yeah, thanks, Martin. That anyway, Montana Department of Environmental Quality, has released a draft environmental assessment evaluating the proposed project up there, and they're going to plan to issue Riverside Contracting the permit. And the people up there are pretty upset about it because they didn't think that, this was going to be done. But now that this is all going on, they were asking the council to get involved and submit a comment to DEQ about this work that's going to be done with that big gravel pit up there. So people said that, they said that they can see it, they won't be able to see it from the highway or anything, but a lot of them say that you come from up here at July or Evero up there, and you're looking down in there, you will be able to see that big hole in the ground over there. So people are really concerned about this and ask, like stated, the council to get involved with it more. Because we haven't talked about this in council for a while. So maybe we ought to see if we can get some comments made to that DEQ. Garden up there, Shelley asked about the garden out there proposed to be put up there, and I told her about the gentleman that called the other day, or here the other day, presented on the garden, and Hardy was one of them, but she was concerned about the water, to water the garden up there, because where they want to put it, there's no place to get water from. So I don't know what where if they're gonna move it or where they're planning on putting it now. So I don't know. So they're gonna have to talk with the gentleman or whoever is gonna put the garden in up there. They're gonna have to talk about them and see where they can get the water for that. I guess what else do we have? I guess that's about it, Mr. Chair. So I don't know if Jimmy has anything to add.
Being covered it all pretty well. It was a pretty good meeting. People asked some pretty harsh questions about their home repairs, that kind of stuff. It's a big concern. Some people have never heard back from the program, so I think that's a little bit of the issue. But yeah, it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for the update, Bing and Jimmy. We'd want to make sure maybe we can follow up on a couple of them at the chairs meeting on Monday. I'll ask Rick. I know that part of these, or at least a couple of them, would be relevant to Clayton Matt coming in at the chairs meeting. So, yeah, thank you. Okay, one more quick update, and then we'll go to our walk-ins. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom and I attended the meeting down at the Salish Culture Committee. It was a meeting with the Bureau of Land Management and the elders, and Tony and Cashola was there, myself, like I said, Mr. Chair. And it was kind of disappointing that there was only two of us there, and we heard about it repeatedly, that, the Salish elders are, when there's these meetings, we should all be there. And I know people have prior engagements, people have appointments. But we knew about this a month out. you know, the elders meetings every month. Yeah, I hear about it there that no one's going, and you can zoom into those, or used to be able to zoom into those. So I really worry that, you know, some of the concerns, you know, this is the BLM part was about land management, co-management of our Aboriginal territories, in the Blackfoot watershed. And a lot of the worry is that, you know, we're losing our culture and that we are not continuing that by not practicing things there. And, you know, the other worry I have is this council is kind of putting culture to the side and putting it in basements and putting it out in back rooms at places. And, you know, we need to remember what we said when we were running for council and how important that was to a lot of people on their platforms and everything. And so I think Tom and I got a little harsher than this yesterday. And so I'm just trying to relay that back to you guys to make sure that, you know, we make it there and we make it a priority to be there. You know, both of them, both ends. You know, if we have these consultations with, you know, the feds, we should all be there to support and show how important our culture is. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Martin. Jennifer, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yesterday, I was at the State Tribal Economic Development Commission meeting in Helena that started at 9 a.m. And, you know, I understand that the Culture Committee was probably angry that we weren't all there. And, but, you know, I definitely hear Martin's words but I you know, I don't know if that's your opinion, Martin, or if you're translating that, but, you know, I feel like I live in my district. I do my best to attend the meetings in person when I'm there and to do the best work for our people. And I do take my work very seriously, and I think that we all do. And and I don't think that any of us are intentionally not going to any of the culture meetings because we don't want to go. But I do hear that maybe that some of them perceive it that way. And when I'm there in person, I'll give more of an update on some of the things that we talked about on the State Tribal Economic Development Commission, because I think that there could be some exciting things coming for us, some really good economic opportunities for our tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Just to add a little bit to the meeting yesterday. So we are going to be planning some additional field trips with the elders to the lower Blackfoot area. And of course, we always note that all of council's been on the field trips out there. I think we've had 3 different field trips out to look at Prim Meadows and the whole drainage and the whole land transfer and the potential land transfer Prim Meadows to the tribes from the Nature Conservancy. So I think we're in the beginning stages of how we collectively manage or jointly manage that former private timber company land with BLM. So there's a great opportunity to continue the discussion and work with the elders as we move forward with this. So it was an exciting meeting, actually. I really enjoyed the meeting, and the elders did participate quite well. So with that, we'll jump into our first scheduled walk-in, which is Bill. Come on up, Bill, and then we'll do Kenneth after that. Morning, Bill. What can we do for you today? You need water, huh? Push the red button on the mic there. There you go. Yeah. There we got red.
I'm here to talk about a lease that I got back from you guys years ago we're going back to 2005. I'm just sort of gonna update you where I'm at and what's going on. When I took this lease over, it was a cherry orchard on Blue Bay, mile marker 14. And I proceeded to put in 3,000 trees, and now 13 years, I got my 13, 14-year-old trees, and we're up against some water issues and whatnot there. The problem with the water is in the area in 91, they were forewarned, all the wells in that area went dry. And they were forewarned by a hydrologist that this is a aquifer that's having trouble. And we were at the point, I heard them, they over talked about the Girt ditch who would be reopened. And the Girt ditch never got reopened. We came to a conclusion when we were all together that we're gonna work on the Girt ditch, and that was over 10 years ago. And they said, you know, Bill, it's gonna be probably reopened within a year. You know, it's gonna be reopened. Okay. Well, that was over 10 years ago and nothing's happened with it. The problem is this year we've had 5 wells go down up there, which is pretty significant. You know, that's quite a few wells in one area. They're all on what they call the southern crack. And I'm toward the end, I'm the second to the end of the last wells on that southern crack. And and I just started going down. I started going down the year before. I thought that we're just having some well troubles and whatnot. And this year I pulled in the well guy and everything. We pulled everything up and ran a test, and it's failing. He said, you're dried up. Okay. So now we're to this point. I have to water my trees to sell to the co-op. And without water, I don't sell. Without water to my trees is devastating to those trees. It will affect them severely. And I've been going over to try to come up with different ideas to the folks. I gave 3 different ideas to. I said, I'll go up to the Girt ditch, I'll bore through the mountain, I'll bring it in at a different angle, you know, without no trouble, which would be a lot of work, but I ain't got no choice. My back's against the wall. And I'm not here asking for money from none of you. This is all out of my pocket. I offered to drill under the highway, go out to the lake. And I've also offered to move my well, maybe to another piece of tribal land, go over and try to get in that northern crack and see if I can reproduce a well and run water back down to my orchard. And to none of these are avail. You know, they're not, and I'm not saying that nobody's trying to help me here. It's just that nobody has as much urgency as I have. You know, what I have, this is my livelihood. And so I'm looking for my options, and I know that if I do go underneath the highway, I'm 3 to 6 months out to get bore permits, do all the work to get under the highway, get in there and get working. Same way going to any of these motions, I got time that I have to do. And I've mentioned this to the guys, and there was a mention of maybe the council's talking about just letting this area dry out. And what I'd like to know is, if that's the case, I'd like to know, you know, a raise of hands that say, no, we're not going to let this dry up. We're going to figure out a way to try to help solve this problem. But there's issues of that, and that gives me a little bit nervous. You know, I got a lot of money invested here. I've done everything to the books. I've developed the well that's there. They put me into, well, we need storage unit tanks, everything. I put them all in, put in storage tanks, everything. Changed up my sprinkler system so it's a high-end, misting system, so every single tree's just misted what it exactly needs. I've done all these things that cost a lot of money. And I put it up, I've done it, I've never asked for the tribe for any money on this deal. We had an issue at the road, never, the tribe put up some money, but it never come through. But it's okay. I'm happy taking care of myself. But in this case, I need some permission to say, we need to force forward to go a certain direction, at least give me a backup route that I can start working on. I'm not asking any of you, your people to have to back me or anything, but I want backing that I can, if I'm gonna go toward the lake, what I can start the process, I can start the paperwork and get everything in motion so I can do something, or, and so it's out of my hands right now. I'm gonna redevelop the well that I got again. I'm gonna redevelop this year, and I'm gonna hope and pray that aquifer supplies enough to get me by. I don't know. But just like anybody, we don't like, I like to have a second option.
Thank you, Bill. I guess fortunately for you or unfortunately for me, I'm somewhat familiar with the aquifer up there as a manager of Blue Bay for quite a few years. Yeah, I know that we developed a brand new well and put in, storage tank to deal with the water for the 35 acres of the Blue Bay campground facility. There is a siphon underneath the highway for that ditch.
Oh yeah, for the GERT.
Yeah. So there is already piping underneath the highway. I always thought it was the best deal because it is a sensitive aquifer that for irrigation, we should always pull out of the lake. And so I investigated ways that we could irrigate the campgrounds and the other grounds that are there at Blue Bay with lake water and save the well water for more domestic use for household needs, potable water needs. So I know where you're coming from. And indeed, that is your best bet for irrigation is coming out of your largest water source, which would be Flathead Lake. And I think what we would need is our resource specialist to come forward with a plan to work with you and how we would do that. We have a new paradigm today in how we're operating with the Unitary Water Board and that process. So I'm not sure that we're prepared to make some declaration, Bill, other than we share your concern, at least I do. I would like to move forward with working on, starting the process of some of these new developments out of the lake and out of the river where our large water sources are. So I can ask Mark and others to work with you and come together with a plan. But we have to go through the new process that's there. It's a new day today where we're dealing with pulling water, developing new water allocations and water uses.
Yeah, I do understand your new process, and I've been at this for a few months, shuffling this process to find out where do I start, where do I go, and I'm getting collisions in there that, basically these people going, hey man, this would be an awesome project to step up. We got a drying out aquifer, this is what we got money funded for, to help these areas out so they don't dry up. But then you get the next collision of people coming this way. No, we got something else to work on. I don't know. I would really love to talk to a group of people that instead of making excuses of why we can't do anything, at least have, for every excuse you make one reason what we're doing to make it better. If you think that way, all of a sudden that quiets everybody up because it's easy. We all know it's easy to make an excuse. I've had it in my life and everything. You can make a million excuses overnight, but to solve the problem and step forward and make a positive decision and head in the right direction. And that's where you're going to find this board it's at right now. I just said, I need to start permits. I got to get something going here. I'm sweating because I know I ain't got no water. And like I said, I'm gonna redevelop, I'm gonna do everything I can in my right, you know, it's all, you know, I mean, that was the first thing everybody said is, well, redevelop your well and do all this, and I'm fine with that. But I'm also trying to look at the back of me and going, what happens if it collapses? You know, if the well goes down in the middle of my season, I lose my whole crop, I lose all of it. You know, and there's nobody there to say, well, we got you covered, Bill. We're gonna pay the bills here for you. You know, you got $40,000 tied up into chemicals and doing all this work, and yeah, you lose. You know, I don't like.
Just one question, Bill, you must carry crop insurance.
You carry crop insurance, but I'm lucky if I can pull out the cost of everything. You know, I mean, the cost of all of it. You know, you got your, right now we're starting to do the cut. You know, we're doing our trimming and everything right now. There's, you know, there goes another 13,000. First chemical bill just came in over 10,000. You just, all these bills are rolling in, and my insurance is gonna pay for a parcel of that. Yes, I do have insurance. But it's also saying you're broke for the year, now you gotta start for next year. And the same process starts next year, no matter what. You're gonna pay that kind of money.
Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Bill's effort to at least go beyond halfway to meet his end of it. I have actually been thinking about Bill, because this was an issue some time in the past. And as I drive by his area, I think, well, hopefully it got resolved. Well, I find out today it hasn't been. And I'd like to strongly recommend by March 1st that we have resource specialists come up with some plans and options to present to Bill and maybe to council, so we kind of know, you know, even if it's a permit to be able to go underneath that girth ditch, to go underneath the highway there or whatever, but there's got to be some options out there that Bill's willing to put his effort into it. I would really like whoever is the point person, you mentioned resource specialist, but somebody's got to be asked to, let's sit down with Bill and let's get a plan put together so he can move forward, because we've had some dry years. It kind of started out that maybe we were going to have some moisture this year, but I know that ground aquifer is really dry, and what moisture we do have is, I know Councilman Dawson mentioned that when the water's melting up there on the prairie, it's not running off, it's going down. So it's pretty dry out there. So I would like to strongly recommend that we set a date of like March 1st, and hopefully Bill has got some options that he can move forward with.
Thank you, Terry. I think the two departments that would be involved here would be the Natural Resource Department and the Lands Department is leased, and then the Natural Resource Department with their water resource management and the Blue Bay grounds itself. Yeah, a redundant system needs to be out there. I tried to do it myself as a resource specialist a long time ago, before it was complicated with what we have today before us. But we do have a process that we have to follow that is a new paradigm today, Bill, that no matter how we try to expedite it, it still will require, if we draw the lake, that's going to require the Unitary Water Management Board, which is a state tribal board, to approve it. And their engineer is going to have to recommend it. So we can bring forward a proposal. We can identify that reserved water right from a Hungry Horse and the lake as part of that draw. But I would concur that we could at least, try to get something going, and I think it's a good move. So I would concur with Terry's recommendation, a couple weeks out, and have Natural Resource Department and Lands Department work with Bill and identify some alternatives. Any other comments? I know Melissa's on. Melissa, is that, do you have anything to add to it as our water rights expert?
Well, good morning, council. Everything you said is correct. We are working internally with both the Dewar team and Mark and the Lands team in, as you know, coming up with a process for use of flathead system compact water for this kind of purpose and other purposes as well. And we are working on it, and I will communicate the urgency and the council's wishes to have some options by March 1st. And we'll continue to work towards that goal.
Thank you, Melissa. Mark, do you have anything else to add?
No, actually, that's pretty much that we've been working together on this. Bill came into the office a few months ago on this, and we started kicking around the options of what he can potentially be doing. So I reached out to Seth and them, and then we started the discussions with Melissa and Seth, myself, Casey Ryan, Chris Corville. We've been going around on this, trying to find another option, but with the flathead water use there, you know, it takes that unitary board for us to get it through. I know he's worked with Ethan up there at the water board too, trying to see what his options were, and that's for a well. So we've been going in circles trying to figure out this. So I think we just need to really sit down again with Bill and that and show him the options, what he has available right now, and move forward, and hopefully we can get it resolved with water coming from the lake. I have talked with Bill about it before, is that, you know, that is the biggest water, and it would be more ideal to be coming out of there instead of trying to bore through to open up the Girt ditch again. So I think we just have to still work on it.
Thanks, Mark. Is that council's concurrence? Sound good? Okay. Thanks, Bill, for coming in.
Thank you for your time.
You betcha. Kenneth, old person junior, come on up.
Hi, can we go into an executive session?
Sure we can.
Let's
You bet.
do this.
We'll move into an executive session, so. He did say 18, didn't he? And whatever we can't find, he's gonna take out of his own pocket. He's spreading sunshine today. All right, Mike. Hey, come on up to the table. You guys are up. Good morning.
Oh, morning. Top of the morning to you. That's yeah, we're here to SKC Press is considering publishing a manuscript on the history of the Mission Valley or Mission Mountain wilderness area, and we have a manuscript from a lady by the name of Diane Crawhay, who is an environmental writer and former student at U of M in Missoula. And it covers about 90% of it. It still needs a concluding chapter if you wanted us to go ahead with it. But the we ran the manuscript past Rich Jensen, and he said that the Natural Resources Department did not have any problem with it, didn't have anything that would conflict with it. And he wanted us to come to the council and see if you guys had any problem with it. Now, the manuscript is on your screen there. It's quite long, so it's about 150 pages. And I guess you haven't had a previous chance to look at it. But the history of the wilderness area really goes back quite a bit. One of the earliest tribal councils, excuse me, had requested or had a proposal which they sent to DC to have the Mission Mountains declared a tribal national park. And that was ignored in DC. And then later, a couple of years later, the Collier administration came in and imposed wilderness area on the tribe in the Mission Mountains area. And this was without the tribe's consent, and there was some reaction to that. And then that brings us to the McDonald part of it. And Walter and the end of that part of it. So I'll let Joe.
Yeah, Walter was opposed to it, and I'm not sure why. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no, okay. Well, anyway, so finally in the 1950s, Walter and the council ended up getting the roadless area revoked. And then later, in the 1980s, the tribe ended up establishing a wilderness area, which is slightly different. And so there's quite a long history there about all of the handling of this. So basically, we're interested in, if you need more time or whatever, but do you have any problems and to consider it a positive project to go ahead with? And also there's one other chapter that needs to be added if you have no problems with it. And Diane has agreed to do a chapter that would bring it up to date, which would run from 1995 to the management 2023.
Any questions from council? I'm unfortunately very familiar with with the.
Well, yeah, Tom was there when Diane was doing the research for her master's thesis, which was how this started. And I have gone over the manuscript, and which I do for all of our publications, and double checked every reference that I had access to make sure that the reference is accurate, and also every quote word for word to make sure that it's can't guarantee that it's perfect, but it's the best job I can possibly do on the accuracy part of it.
Yeah, I did. Sure, your due diligence is always good, Bob. So appreciate that. Yeah, it's just a historical record, and it's an interesting story. It really is.
Which I'm sure many of the tribal members aren't knowledgeable about.
The council okay with SKT Press moving forward? Absolutely.
Okay.
Looks good.
Now, one thing, so then you have no problems with, Diane would need to interview some of the tribal employees that were involved with that and to bring it up, to do the up-to-date chapter in that. The other thing is do you want me to come back when I get the last chapter and show you that too, or you want me to just go ahead with? I don't see any problem.
Come back. I think this group needs edification. So yes.
Okay, great. No, we'll, but anyway, so with the 90% of the manuscript that you have here, it looks like a good project then, huh?
Yeah, there's the Wilderness Journal. There was a couple of articles in that you might be able to reference. I don't know if you have or not, Bob. And then of course, Julie Kajun did some publication.
Yeah, there was one.
It's a pretty good publication. So yeah, it would be it'd be great to come back. So we look forward to it.
Okay. I don't know how long it'll take her to, complete the last chapter. She has other things she's working on too, but anyway, so, I'll come back before we go ahead with it when I get the last part of the manuscript. So I'll bring you the concluding chapter to bring it up to date.
Yeah, back in the 70s, the PIA proposed a timber sale up on the face of the missions. And, some of us were against it, were on the council, but we were kind of losing, we were losing out. And so Bearhead got the tribal elders, the two sisters, Louise McDonald and Mrs. Woodcock. He got them to come to the council and tell them how important those mountains were in the medicine doings that people went up on there to find their spirit. They'd go up in the mountains and they convinced the council then to change their action. And so then they backed off from logging the face of the missions. It's wonderful that we're able to keep that because it ties in with the wilderness area that the National Forest has. It's just a wonderful, even though sometimes it burns and we have to sit down here in the valley and watch it burn, but that's the way wilderness is. And so I really do appreciate it. Hope it stays that way for the next 7 generations.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the last thing is we have, Joe and I finished a book on some of the sports figures in the 20th century. And we have copies for the council if you'd like to have them, so. Tom's already got one, but he can have another one.
I have one, yeah. Terry was talking about, doing our own tribal member hall of fame. And I would mention the book because Terry.
We talk about it all the time.
And we talk about it, yeah.
Somebody has to take the bull by the horns now. Gail Decker did this one. It never would have happened, but this book, Bob's done some wonderful research on it. He went back and found newspapers, Haskell newspapers, old Missoulians, Lake County papers, to get those box scores of baskets that Sam Claremont made and Frenchy Roulier, and the work of the wrestlers and Jimmy Dupuis, the boxer. And we just went up to World War II, except for Marvin Camel. We thought, as distinguished he was, we should include him. It's like the Hall of Fame, the work needs to be done now from 1947 on, like Joe Mathias was such a tremendous basketball player. Played for Polson and then went on and played for the Bobcats. And we should have that, that story in here. So there's a lot of stories like that we'd like to do. J.R. Camel, stories like that. Jimmy Molitor, when he was terrorizing them there, Harley and Bing Matt.
Before the bionic knees. One last thing, I do have I can provide, if you're interested in, well, of course you have access to all the manuscripts here on electronics if you want. I also have a paper copy if any of you would like to have it, and could provide others if you'd like to, since it's a rather long thing to have to go through just a couple minutes here. If anybody would like the paper copy.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody want a paper copy? Ellie does.
Oh, okay, well, we got. No, this doesn't include the file.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Keep up the good work. We expect another decade out of you two. All right, thank you. Break? We'll take a break until
I'll start getting John on at 10:20.
10:20. Okay. Break. Spend those minutes wisely. When we come back, I'll do my update before we do, John. Just quickly before we get started with the rest of our agenda, I wanted to update you on Monday. So Monday we'll still have our chairs meeting, but I'll have to go do my 10-minute speech to the legislature on Monday, so I won't be here Monday. And then Clayton will be on. That's a good time to bring up the couple of items that were mentioned in our lead. NCAI is next week, and so we have Jennifer was going to participate by Zoom for the committee stuff she was on, but we're thinking maybe it's probably a good idea to have someone there. So I know Len can't go and I can't go, and so it's Kelly or Martin, I think. You would DC for NCAI. Martin said he was willing to go.
Go, Martin.
Unless you want to go, Ellie. Okay. It's pretty much all week next week. I wanted to remind everybody also the 23rd, next Wednesday in the afternoon. Is it Wednesday? No, it's a Thursday. Is the to review of the city county animal control facility in Missoula, and that's it. To meet there at 2 o'clock. So we're gonna have a morning session. Okay. Okay. And then we wanted to make sure if we don't discuss it at the end of the day today, but take it up at the chairs meeting, we need to finalize our election committee. So what it's going to be. We had a couple different alternatives. We did agree at a minimum that we would have a legal beagle sit on the committee, but we had proposals of having a citizens committee with maybe one council representative, or there's always the backdrop of the 5 council that aren't up for election with the legal beagle. But I think there's some of us are like to see a citizens committee or some citizens appointed to the election committee. So there, it seems like it's more open and above board. At least I would favor that, if not completely. So if you could, we don't take it up today, we probably could take it up at the chairs meeting too. But I would, just so you know, I'm strongly advocating for some citizens and tribal members to be on election committee. So. All right, let's go ahead and get going. We're okay. So Martin. Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I just also wanted to say I would be in favor of having tribal members who want to be on the election committee to participate. I just think that's important for transparency. So I look forward to having that discussion later. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, John.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'd like to get you to approve a resolution, and it's a grant for $25,000 through the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leadership Council. And grant funding from CDC. And what it is for is to convert data from other data sources and to train staff on use of reporting tools.
Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I'd make the motion for the submission of the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders grant. Corresponding resolution.
Motion by Martin to approve the grant to the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Council and the supporting resolution for the grant, seconded by Bing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Where's Jennifer? Jennifer, did you vote? Yes, okay. Unanimous? Mike Dolson's out of the room, I should say. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, next up, we have Jessica. Okay. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. I'm Jessica Eagle Bluestone. Thank you for meeting with us today. I'm with Respec, and I'll just get my presentation going here. Okay, can you see my slides?
We do.
Okay, so we're here because we're working on Montana's multi-hazard mitigation plan. Our company has 29 offices across the United States and Canada, and we work in several different service areas, and this one falls under water and environment. Our company, Respec, is committed to enhancing tribal engagement, best practices, and supporting relationships with communities. Respec Canada has had long-term relationships with Indigenous leaders and has established a joint venture, Keanu Ventures, that aims to support sustainable development in the natural resource sector by building bridges between communities and project proponents. So on this project, we have a few people with our company on the call. I know our principal in charge, Mike, is on here, and then me, Jessica Eagle Bluestone, and a couple of our supporting members. So a bit of background, Respec is working on with Montana's Disaster and Emergency Services to update the state's multi-hazard and mitigation plan. The multi-hazard mitigation plan must be completed every 5 years to meet the requirements of the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, and it's necessary to remain eligible for federal pre- and post-disaster funding for hazard mitigation grants from FEMA. The plan was last approved July 2018 and will expire this year, October 1st. It includes, but is not limited to, wild land and range fires, flooding, earthquake, drought, severe weather, hazard materials and transportation accidents, disease, landslides, dam failure, terrorism, violence, civil unrest, cybersecurity, and volcanic ash. CSKT completed a pre-disaster mitigation plan in 2016. I'm not sure if you guys have updated that since then, but that's the most up-to-date one that we could find. And in that plan, you guys identified 10 hazard mitigation goals. The first was reduce impacts from wildfires, and then transportation accidents, landslides, structure fires, climate change, flooding, public health, severe weather, and then reduce impacts from all hazards, and maintain cultural sites and customs. And for each of these mitigation goals, it was further broken down into potential projects on how to reach those goals. So for this one, enhance emergency services to mitigate impacts from wildfires. One of the projects that was proposed was to identify and facilitate additional training for firefighters. And then it goes on to show the priority ranking, jurisdiction, and funding sources. So the purpose of us seeking a meeting with you guys is to seek your input. Are there any hazards that you guys think that we should add to our plan? Are your community hazards still the same as they were from the 2016 plan? Have you guys had any successful projects in your mitigation efforts? I also have additional slides if you guys would like to go through and review multi-hazard mitigation plans, or if you guys kind of remember the 2016 plan, or if you guys are currently in the process of updating, we can kind of just like stick around this page for discussion. What do you guys think? Mr. Chairman?
Preference from the council? I never saw the other slideshow myself, so.
Okay. So you'd like to review the what goes into a multi-hazard mitigation plan?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm just mentioning that for myself, but.
Okay. Does anyone have a recollection of the 2016 plan?
I'm not sure anybody here, unless Lynn, 20.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. So I will go forward. So the reasons for developing a multi-hazard mitigation plan is population and community growth. More people are living in hazardous areas where there's greater exposure to risk, people, infrastructure, and buildings. There's more hazard events, more disasters declared, and an increase in disaster response and recovery costs. So why addressing these is a priority is legal and ethical responsibility, the increasing cost of response and recovery. Many events are predictable and repetitive. Loss reduction activities can be undertaken. Mitigation efforts, they work well, they're cost effective, they're environmentally sound, and there's funding available to, grants available to fund a lot of mitigation projects. How can we reverse the trends of, how can we reverse the disaster trends? It's through mitigation. Any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to human life, property, and hazards is mitigation. So the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires communities to update their hazard mitigation plan every 5 years to remain eligible for federal pre and post disaster funding. The plan ensures the jurisdictions in the region will remain eligible for mitigation projects when funding becomes available. And 2019 was the last update for the Tribal Mitigation Planning Book by FEMA. So DMA planning, what it is and why it's important. So it's important to identify risks and solutions in a pre-disaster environment, creates eligibility for mitigation funds, guide mitigation activities in coordination and economic manner, in a coordinated and economic manner, sorry. And it's incorporated into other existing planning mechanisms, considers the impact to future development, and helps plan to build wisely, reduces losses, and makes communities more resilient. So what the plan is not, it is not a regulatory document, and it is not a commitment of resources. So FEMA and the state encourage communities to be both ambitious and practical. Both FEMA and the state understand that actions are dependent on the availability of resources. Communities are not punished for not completing actions in the plan. So if there's a project proposed, like in the example earlier, to get additional training for firefighters, there's no consequence to not following through on that, but of course that's would be great too. So a review of possible mitigation activities and alternatives. So mitigation hazard examples to reduce future demand for and rising costs of disaster response and recovery, retrofit a critical facility, reinforce building codes, land use planning, removing a structure from a hazardous area. So a mitigation activity would be elevating a home by the river, or defensible space between property and forest, and moving homes from landslide areas. It is not purchasing response, or it's not part of like the response activity, like purchasing vehicles. So a review of mitigation alternatives. So alter the hazard. So if there's if you're in a forest fire area, you could do prescribed burns or fuels management to reduce wildfire intensity and severity, or like draining lakes behind weakened dams. You can avert the hazard with flood walls and floodgates, debris nets and basins, drainage improvements, channels, culverts, and fire breaks to avert the hazard. Or avoid the hazard. So acquisitions, relocations, open spaces, land use designations, and natural system protections. Adapt to the hazard. You can update building codes, update construction standards, land use development regulations, design standards, monitoring and warning systems, and build safe rooms and shelters. So mitigation action categories. We have prevention, structural projects, public information, property protection, natural resource protection, and emergency services. So this slide shows FEMA community lifelines. So these are the resources that FEMA would like to help communities get back or get up and running as soon as possible after a disaster. So projects eligible for FEMA funding, wildfire. You can get funding to develop defensible spaces. So just creating a barrier between existing structures and like forests or grasslands. Structural protection through ignition resistant construction activities, hazardous fuel reduction, community level vegetation management, vegetation removal, vegetation cleaning or thinning, slash removal, vertical clearing of trees and branches, and biomass plants. Could all be used to mitigate wildfires. So projects eligible for funding for flood mitigation are acquisition, dry and wet flood proofing, elevation, minor localized flooding reduction projects like detention ponds and channel stabilization, new policy change, levee projects, or infrastructure retrofits. Projects eligible for funding for winter storms would be, or these are example projects. These aren't the only things that are eligible to be funded. Ensure development and enforcement of building codes for snow load, burying and hardening overhead power lines, informing the public about severe winter weather impacts, organizing outreach to vulnerable populations, including establishing and promoting accessible heating centers, and retrofitting public buildings to withstand snow loads and prevent roof collapse. Projects eligible for other hazards, like landslide and geologic hazards, channel or slope stabilization, to protect critical infrastructure, property acquisition, utility protection and infrastructure retrofit, building safe rooms, obtaining generators, building a microgrid or smart grid, seismic building infrastructure retrofit, and climate resilient mitigation activities like groundwater recharge and green infrastructure. Things FEMA will not count towards the requirements: conducting routine maintenance, developing a program to manage the mitigation efforts, conducting a study, improvements where recently completed on, identifying projects to reduce risk. So funding mitigation options. Available funding sources are like federal and state grants. If you guys have a budget for mitigation, like that can help move mitigation projects along. Capital improvement budget, healthcare coalitions, public-private partnerships, conservation coalitions, and fees, assessment, levies, and there might be additional funding sources. So FEMA hazard mitigation grants. Projects must be tied directly to the mitigation goals, objectives, and specific actions in the multi-hazard mitigation plan. Most have 25% local match. HMGP, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. I'll give you guys this presentation, and then if you guys are interested in developing a mitigation project, then you guys will have access to these. These are a list of FEMA preparedness grants. And then other grants available through like USDOT, BIA, HUD, EPA, USDA, USFW, CDC, BOR, USAC. The state of Montana might have additional grants available. So plan implementation, there we go, and maintenance. The plan must describe how, when, and by whom the plan will be monitored, tracking implementation of mitigation actions, identifying new actions as needed, and losses avoided during the mitigation activities, It must be evaluated for effectiveness at achieving goals and objectives. What hindered implementation, and what factors contributed to the success. It must be updated regularly, reviewed and revisited at least once every 5 years. And there must be continued public improvement, engaged and given opportunity to provide input. The following tasks should be conducted regularly, at least annually. High review, so that's hazard identification, risk assessment review. So changes to hazards and vulnerabilities must be identified. Review of recent hazard incidents. Updates to mitigation actions. Assess effectiveness of completed mitigation actions. There must be an annual face-to-face meeting of the hazard mitigation planning team to discuss updates on further mitigation actions and/or significant impactors and events. There must be job aids, so simple agenda for annual meetings. So incorporating into other planning mechanisms. Mitigation is most successful when it is incorporated into day-to-day functions and priorities of government and development. Implementation through existing plans and programs is recommended whenever possible, with like a comprehensive plan, zoning subdivision ordinances, floodplain ordinances, capital improvement plans, and emergency operation plans. So back to our meeting goals. So we'd like to hear if your guys' priorities are the same from the 2016 plan. I can send that out to you guys if you don't have it readily available. If you guys wanted to review that and our current hazard identification and risk assessment document, we could do that. Oh, go ahead.
Jessica, you mentioned the 2016, but then you said it was ours was updated in 2019.
No, so the 2019 was not for your tribe. It's the FEMA, the FEMA planning book was updated in 2019.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Here, let me get out of this. Yep. So
yours.
What was that? So your guys's would actually be up for needing to be updated if 2016 was the last time it was. And there is an option for you guys to adopt the state plan. If you guys have any questions on that, I think Mike, who's on the call, could answer that a bit more or give more information. Do you guys have any questions at this point?
One, have you had any conversations with our disaster emergency coordinator, Dale Nelson?
No, I can write his name down here.
Or our tribal health representative, Brian Crawford?
Dale Nelson and Brian Crawford. Nope. Okay. So I think those two would probably be the people to invite to the state hazard mitigation plan update workshop that we're holding February 22nd, correct?
Yeah, that'd be great people to invite for sure.
Okay. Okay. So if you guys don't have any like specific feedback on ideas maybe for projects that you would like included in the plan, I can reach out to those guys. We're also looking at requesting your permission to use reference some items in your 2016 plan, both the pre-disaster plan and the climate change strategic plan that you guys have. We recognize that you guys own the information in those documents, and we wanted to respect your guys' data autonomy, and ask if you guys would allow us to reference information from them.
Council, okay with them referencing our 2 published documents? They've been out there in the public.
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions? Not seeing any.
Okay, anyone from the Respect team, do you have anything that you guys would like to add?
Yeah, this is Mike Rotar. I'm the project manager on that. Thank you for allowing us to come into your meeting today. Appreciate that. And as Jessica mentioned, as part of the state plan process going on this year, we've got that meeting scheduled next week. And as she mentioned, tribes as well as county and other local jurisdictions will have the ability to be included in part of within the state plan that's ongoing now. And so I would encourage representatives from CSKT, and we'll reach out to both Dale and Brian to attend that meeting if they can next week, and learn more about our ongoing process and how that will move forward the remainder of this year.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Great. So that's all we have.
All right. Well, thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
You too. Bye.
Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Since we were talking emergency response, I just wanted to mention an event that has come up in the past, and I think this should be an annual event. It's the active shooter training that we've had in the past. There is an opportunity for the staff to engage. I forget what it is. I think it's LSU. They want to provide a free training to the tribes, and I just wanted to get consensus of the council to move forward, have our executive team start that planning process, and this would be for all of the employees, including the tribal council. So if everybody's agree with that, we can have the executive team start that process.
I think everybody's willing to do that. Thanks for bringing that up, Len, because I think that training is scheduled for next month.
Yeah.
Next month, and active shooter training is always good to engage in. So absolutely. I think that's a critical need for us.
Okay. So if you can mention that to Rick. All right. Thanks, Jennifer. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Len, for bringing that up.
So since we're waiting on Dixon to show up, Brad McCray had something that he wanted to bring up for the fire department doing a rescue at Turtle Lake, and they just need to get approval of the fire. You know how you guys used to do the rest. That's what he's requesting.
Okay. Nope. Nope. Just do it. We're rolling, sun shining. Terry started us out a good way. That'd be nice to have Dale Nelson do an update. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you. I didn't see any emergency plan for railroad derailment. Goes through Jocko Valley, goes through Dixon along the Flathead River.
I think that's part of their transportation when they log that into the transportation as a category. Most of the FEMA or disaster plans that I've seen really focus on the main haul route and upstream from us. And not that down here is it's a major issue down here too, but they really focused on that Highway 2 route going through where we've had a lot of derailments is going east from Columbia Falls along the Flathead River, the middle fork of the Flathead, and where we've had some major disasters. And they haul a lot of product. Not to say that's not the situation down here. They just tend to have more derailments up there. So it's always been a main focal point for the Flathead Lakers and Flathead County and us down here. But that same thing could happen with when they started putting a lot of product on down here with the shutdown of the pipeline. That became more of a concern on along Highway 200 and the Lower Flathead River, for sure. But that's what I've seen, Terry, as far as they usually mention it. There's actually some disaster plans for that if the train fell off and landed in the middle fork. And it's all not good at all. It's very hard to deal with, depending on the time of the year. Yeah. So they've had them both in the heat of the summer, and then of course landslide effects in the wintertime. Not landslide, snow snow events. Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see on TV this morning, they had a derailment back east that went on in the, a lot of it, that chemicals went into the river and there was fish that was dead that contaminated that river, right? And trains, some of the cars, oil trains were burning and whatnot down there, and it was a heck of a mess down there. And I'm thinking about what you're just saying here with trains going through here, through our valleys and stuff up here, and we had it happen once already, and it was just, hopefully we don't ever happen again, but it's always that chance of it's gonna happen, and contaminating our rivers down there, especially down there on the other side of Dixon down through there, that's, it goes into that Flathead River where we're a heck of a mess, but yeah, I was watching that this morning and I thought that, that's something you guys really gotta watch for, and see what, I don't know what we can do with the railroad, but going through here all the time with those chemicals and gas and oil or whatever else they have. But, it'd be something to look into with her plan here that she had here just now. And, it'd be good to check things out like that and see if there's anything we could maybe come up with and have some plans for something like that, because it was quite a disaster there this morning on TV in that area with the rivers and whatnot.
Yeah, that event was like right out of one of those movies, like a horror movie as far as the chemical spill and air pollution, water pollution, and people having to be evacuated. Definitely, I know we have some examples down in the Clark Fork where we've had cars end up in the Clark Fork River more recently. So we'll put Dale Nelson on that. Oh, yeah, Jen.
I'm just gonna leave Brad for Tuesday, but Miranda's here.
Okay,
Good update.
hey, come on up. I saw you on TV. And Terry. Yeah, that was great. It was a really nice story.
Good morning, council. So we have got Krista Anderson, the Dixon superintendent, that is here to present her Indian Ed report for this academic year.
Welcome.
This opportunity to come and share all of the many things that we're doing in Dixon. I am Krista Anderson. I've been the principal and superintendent in Dixon. I'm on my 8th year now. So very fortunate to be a part of that community and a part of that school. Okay, sweet. Okay, you will notice if you, I presented the last couple of years, I do leave some of my images and everything because I really like the fact that we're establishing a timeline in Dixon of the progress and growth that we're doing for our students. So I like to show some of the pictures of our students. You'll see some of them in images when they were preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and then again as they are, middle school kids.
It's always good to make us feel old. Yeah.
Right? Well, it does the same thing for me, trust me. My very first year there, we had one kindergartner and she's an 8th grader this year. So, let me see if I can get it to advance. Oh, there we go. Dixon School, we really focus on 3 big goals. The first goal that we have is to communicate and ensure high expectations for all students and for all staff. I personally believe that everybody in our system needs to be growing all the time. Sometimes their focus is on what we're doing at school, but every now and then, as we've learned through the last couple of years, your focus might get driven towards what you're doing at home. So finding that balance to help take care of one another while we're growing through our system. Our second primary goal is to provide student-centered instruction while learning within the context of our culture. We live in a rural environment and of course, on the reservation as well. So every student has their individual culture, but every family has that as well as our school and its history as well. So we really try hard to get our kids out and bring people, experts, community members into our school to add voice and add context. Otherwise, because we are such a small and isolated area for many, not all of our kids have transportation. It can be a very limited access to the worldview unless you can offer these opportunities. Our third primary goal is to support families in meeting student academic goals through strategic communication and outreach. Communicating with our families, I know many of you follow our Facebook page or have family members or friends who follow our Instagram page as well. We really try to communicate our story out there. Because sometimes there are stories out there that aren't of a positive light about our community. So the more that we can put out there about what positive things are happening in our school and with our homes, we found that it helped us build trust with our families to help bring kids back that may have been being chosen to go to a different school or chosen to homeschool or chosen just to not attend. So our goal is always to get as many kids in our building as possible. And communication is the way we do that. Our current demographics, that's one of the shifts that we've seen. My very first year there, I think that we only had about 42% of our students were Native. Right now, I think we're at 67. Can't see my own numbers. Right now we're at 63% this year. And a lot of that has been just bringing families back into our school community. And offering as many opportunities as possible. For a small population, as you know, the smaller your population, the weirder percentages get. So in the state, we're actually one of the highest diverse schools in the state because of just the unique population that we serve. Staff professional development, as I said, I firmly believe, and the board really works with us on making sure that all staff are growing and developing as much as our students are. we really work hard on bringing as much tribal culture into our school as possible. But the very first year that I got there, I was lucky because the STEP grant was a big part of what was happening on the reservation at the time. So we had 2 different cohorts of teachers become a part of that grant, which was great for place-based learning for our teachers to really get to know the community. Melissa McElderry is my remaining teacher who was a part of that grant. And I was an active member with that grant as well. We also participate with Tribal PIR Day every year. This year, staff completed a combined 108 sessions through the Tribal PIR process. We not only participate in Tribal PIR Day, but then each teacher has an opportunity to share out what they learned with the rest of the staff through their experiences through Tribal PIR Day. So we kind of have embedded professional development that stems from that great opportunity every year. We then do a lot of personalized PIR time. During our staff-directed PD days, teachers have opportunity to track and record webinars, online courses, and things like that they take. We have some teachers who've been there 3 or 4 years. We have some teachers that are brand new every year. So having everybody sit through the same PD every time we're together doesn't make any sense. So we do a lot of personalized, staggered, and individualized professional learning. That also gives the opportunity, again, for teachers to get up and present to each other about what they're learning to help them start to diversify what they're doing in their classroom. A lot of the opportunity, every year when I offer out the different online modules, we make sure that especially our newer teachers are aware that the Introduction to Indian Ed for All in Montana modules are there. It's helpful when 2 or 3 of the teachers take those courses together, because then they can have active dialogue about how what they're learning is applicable to what's happening in their classrooms. Then we also have worked with the crew at Native Teaching Games. They worked with us for 2 different years, coming in and leading professional development. And it's a reciprocal kind of relationship, because then of course we purchase their materials and help build a local company here as well. So we try every year to get as many teachers as possible to the Indian Ed Best Practices Conference. Of course, the last couple of years when it became remote, we were able to, our hard part is they moved from having it on the weekend to having it partway during the school week, and we just don't have enough subs. So when they publish their calendar early enough, we really try to write our Dixon calendar that includes those days so that we can travel as a team to Helena for that training. We weren't able to do that this year, but it is written into our goals for next year. Another big partnership that we have for professional learning is the Spectrum Professional Learning from the University of Montana. They are who do the Maker Truck here on the reservation as well. So they have provided us with, I don't know, probably $5,000 worth of hands-on materials and resources and professional development for our teachers with makerspace education. We're actually looking to, we have had a shop in our school. Our kids do shop from 6th grade through 8th grade, but there's an area of our shop that we're looking to transform into a community makerspace with the goal of opening that up on Saturdays for families and community members to come in and learn with our students together.
Hey, it's one question.
Yeah.
The conference in Helena, Indian Education for All Best Practices Conference. Who's the main coordinator of that?
Oh gosh, it's from the OPI is who organizes it. Jennifer Sadum is who I've worked with for a long time with that. So it's from the Office of Public Instruction, Indian Ed Department. They organize it, and then they bring in their team to lead. What I love about it is you'll see on my next slide too, we do a lot of things with social emotional learning and restorative practices. And that's another place that we can go to get all of our teachers on the same team and find resources from schools who are similar to ours, because we're just very unique the size that we are. So sometimes it's hard to have our teachers collaborate with districts right next to us. because they don't necessarily understand a K-8 70 student population.
Miranda, is that something that all school districts participate in?
I believe so. I know different schools have mentioned sending a group of teachers to those conferences. And I do know in doing some of the advocacies along with Alex this year, we've been hearing a lot about the restorative practices that teachers have been to those trainings. So I believe it's through the Office of Public Instruction.
One thing that's huge for that, my first 2 years when we had the dollars, we were a bigger part, the first, I guess, 4 or 5 years, we had partnerships with tribal ed that were grant ridden ones. So STEP grant helped me pay for sending all 10 of our teachers and myself to that training for 3 or 4 days because housing is expensive, but it becomes a distance retreat. So if everybody goes at the same time, you all learn together and you come back and you can implement it speaking the same language. And you don't get much out of sending one person to a training and then having them come back. Yeah, so I appreciate the resources we've had. I do encourage anybody to go to that conference. It's well done. Our Dixon staff teaching statistics this year, we have 5 teachers that are American Indian that are certified on staff. So that's 50% of our classroom teachers right now. With that, the biggest thing that I love to point out, each year we have a higher population of teachers that come to us from SKC. We bring them, I reach out to them early in the year to see if we can have their students come and do some pre-service observations at our school. Because again, if all of the students that are coming out of university only get to see classrooms of 15 to 25, they don't know what it's like to be in a multi-age 1st and 2nd grade room with about 10 kids. And so it's daunting. They don't apply for those jobs because they don't understand them. So if I can partner with the universities and have the teachers come while they're in their learning process, they're more apt to apply for our positions when they come available. We also are lucky, we have prioritized housing for our teachers. So we do have 3 houses that we do rent to staff members. That's something that I would love to grow. I would love to be able to have one of our houses like in the agency or closer to that area as well, because we do have a couple of teachers who right now drive down from Ronan or drive down from Polson. And the more local I can get our teachers and our staff to be, the longer they will stay. So right now, 10% of our classified staff are American Indian. 2 of our staff members who are not American Indian are SKC grads. So also trying to help everybody in our community understand that SKC is for everybody. If you want to go to a small school, I like recruiting out of SKC because those teachers went to a small school because they knew the benefits of a small school, which means they're going to understand what we do and why we do it. We do have a full-time counselor. We have a new counselor this year. Marie Michaels had been our counselor and she transitioned to Charlotte at the beginning of this year. And we hired a gentleman who actually used to work at Mission. So I'm just very, very thankful that we're able to continue having a full-time counselor at our building. That's also a priority. We moved to that instead of, we used to have AltaCare. The benefit for us with having a full-time counselor is they can do classroom-based instruction instead of during the instructional day, instead of just pulling kids out one at a time to work with them, where they often then miss instruction time. Prior and current collaborations and initiatives, the ones that are in bold are ones that are still up and active. The ones that are on the list but not bold, I don't take them off the list. We still use everything that we did from these initiatives. We just don't necessarily have funding from them anymore, but they're all pieces of the puzzle that helped us get to where we are now. The Montana Behavioral Initiative, it's kind of where we started really digging into doing restorative justice practices. We don't expel, we don't suspend kids unless there's a physical, violent, or drug-related incident. Everything else we manage at school. We really try to make sure that kids are in the instructional program all the time. Like we were a part of the STEP grant, part of the SAMHSA grant. the College and Career Readiness Grant that we had a couple of years ago. All of those gave us huge resources with professional development, opportunities for field trips with students and all of that. A big part of our district is that we do breakfast in the classroom. We've been a part of the No Kid Hungry Breakfast in the Classroom grant for 7 years now. It really creates a calm way for us to start our school day every day. And it teaches our kids to have kind of that community meal as well. We were part of the preschool literacy block grant with Charlo. Then we also do we lean into the E-rate funding for upgrading our technology. We do have fiber at our building that we brought in about 5 years ago, which got us so that we were able to then go one-to-one. So our students all have access to iPads and Chromebooks throughout the day. Our ESSER modernizations and improvements were huge. There's lots of pictures at the back of the presentation that you'll see. We did almost $1 million worth of modernizations at our district this year. We didn't used to have hot water in the main building. Our boiler, there was a boiler pipe that ran from the gym to the other building. So when you went to go wash your hands, you couldn't even get warm water. So because ESSER prioritized clean and washing, we were able to not only retire the boiler and transition to a ventilation and heating system that helps our air, but we were able to put hot water heaters in the main building. We redid all of our doors, all of our windows, and then we were able to address our interior windows. We were able to fix some safety stuff too. Our classroom doors didn't used to have windows in them, so you couldn't see what was going on in a classroom when you walked down the hallway. We were able to update those, modernize those, and now we have doors with lockable handles, which we also didn't have. So we were able to address some significant safety issues through using ESSER money, which was really helpful. Part of the Headwaters Cultural Innovations Grant, which when the funding went out there, they told me that they have an annual grant every year that you can apply for. So each year I've applied for that. We've been able to get $7,500, which helps go towards all of our spring field trips, including our 7th and 8th grade trip that we usually take either to the West Coast or we alternate between the West Coast and the Yellowstone area. So every kid gets a local field trip and then a distance field trip. Then we have the CSKT Garden School Network that we're continuing to utilize funds to build our garden and greenhouse. And then the Spectrum Maker PLC. Our extracurricular activities. Our band program unfortunately took a bit of a shift. Charlo can't provide us time for their band teacher to come at this time. But we were able to reach out to Mission and they were open to us bringing our 7th and 8th graders over to Mission for band. So they now go, we did have band 5 days a week. Our 7th and 8th graders now have it 2 days a week, but we're able to keep that program active. We're talking about adding it for our 5th and 6th graders on alternating days next year so we can go back to having a 5th through 8th grade program. It does mean that we did have a significant drop in our band program for now. The good part is the interest hasn't dropped, so we're really hoping that we can get everybody involved again. Our athletics, we bring our kids up to Charlo for basketball and for volleyball and for football. We do provide transportation to and from. That's probably one of our bigger expenses. We do use Headwaters money for that as much as we can. We have our own Dixon athletics. We do track and cross country. This year's cross country team, we had 11 kids participating. And in track each year, we have almost 25 kids participating. This year, we also do the ski and snowboard club. Some of you, I know, might have seen us on TV. They're going to air that again this Friday on the news one more time. We use the Sweetheart Dinner to help fund that program. We used to have a ski and snowboard club, which was on Saturdays, and maybe 5 or 6 kids could participate. We moved it into the weekday as part of our PE program, which does cost significantly more. It's about $700 to $800 each trip that we take, but every kid gets the experience. It doesn't matter whether or not a parent can get there on a weekend or not, or if they can pay dues or not. We pay it all for them. They get their lessons when they go, and then they also get all of their equipment covered when they go as well. We do 3 trips in a row, one each week. So kids have to stay eligible, which is a bit of a carrot. They have to be in attendance and they have to not have any office referrals for negative behavior during the time, and it works really, really well. But it's really, really a fun time. We just had our first trip. It scared me. It was the day that they had such horrible roads up by Lookout. We hit the window where they made it, and yeah, it was good. And we're starting to investigate beginning an esports team in Dixon. A lot of our kids are into gaming, and it's just another avenue that we can use to get kids to come to school. Student achievement. Every school has taken, of course, a bit of a hit with COVID, but I really actually am proud of our students. If you look at our history, you can see how we have grown. I always call it growing the green, growing the blue. You can see where we were, and we got stronger and stronger and stronger. COVID hit, and of course, we have more kids at novice, but you can see that we're growing that green pretty quickly back again. But so much of that, and you can see the same thing with math, reading and math are the same. So much of that has to do with the fact that we had 2 years in a row that the 3rd and the 4th graders didn't even see the exam. So you're starting your baseline back again with them even first time seeing it. And those are 2 of our bigger groups of kids population wise. So percentages, it kind of skews the data. I really think this year's data, you're going to see significant growth for our kids again. You can also see that we decreased the number of students identified in novice and math from 56% down to 43%, all in 1 year. Part of that was a math curriculum adoption, and part of it is just our kids are really doing well right now. So I really feel like I said, at the end of this year, we're going to see some leaps and bounds with our scores. And here are some pictures of our renovation project. Like I said, we were able to upgrade. Only a third of our rooms had sinks. Now every room has a sink. Now we have hot water in the main building. We transitioned everything to automatic touch-free sinks and toilets. We added new windows in the front entryway so that we now can see from our front office and my office out in front of the building, which it used to be kind of a blind zone. So if there was an intruder of some kind, even if there was somebody coming to visit, you wouldn't know till they were already fully in the building. So that was part of the fixes as well. We added an ADA bathroom out in our gym that's fully wheelchair accessible. We didn't have anything like that before. At the same time, we were able to make both bathrooms no same-sex bathrooms, basically. So you can go in and out of either, because only one of the bathrooms we were able to make ADA, the other had a drop floor, so you're not able to use that. So it was a good opportunity to make them accessible for anybody. We upped our power grid huge, which we needed to do just to bring us into the century that we're in. And we bought a new bus that was also bought with ESSER funds. This one is amazing because you also don't need to have a CDL to drive it. So all of our staff members can utilize this bus with proper training to transport 15 students, which is great for a district our size. That's what allows us to transport our kids to Mission for band. And then district communication, we really try to be as transparent as we can with everything we do. So we're pretty active on Facebook and on Instagram, and keep an active district website so that people can find out what we're doing and have access to me if there's ever any questions. I think that's all I've got for you.
Well, that was really good. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can, been demonstrated that we're very fortunate to have Krista's energy and enthusiasm. She's just a bright light. When we used to get sent to the office, I knew the paddle was waiting for us. I'm sure when you get sent to her office, you get a hug. So anyway, yeah, she's very special. I was going to ask you, what do you do for instruments for the kids?
Right now, we actually have a surplus of instruments. I basically put out on Facebook, hi, do any of you have students or children who are no longer playing an instrument? Do you have an instrument in your closet, hiding in a garage, out in an old shed? If we get them, we'll get them restored. So I've gotten from donations, but I have about 35 instruments now. I have saxophones, trumpets, baritones, flutes, piccolos. I don't have a French horn yet. But then whenever I get them, I bring them to Music Medics in Missoula and have them restored and then bring them back to the school, and that's what we use.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. Also, there's an agency called My Child in Need, and that's a statewide one, and you can list resources or things that you need. We were able to get all the kids gym shoes one year, utilizing that one too. You put it out there at the right time of year. We use donors choose for a lot of things also. Our classroom teachers have gotten really good about putting projects out there because there's a lot of people who want to support these projects. I think last I checked, we've raised almost $28,000 just through donors choose projects that I haven't done. Teachers have all done those. And you're welcome.
Yes.
I love it.
Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have any problems with bullying down in the school with those grades that you have?
We have situational bullying. I don't think we have a trend of bullying. So we have every now and then it'll pop up. But because I think of how we address it, we use restorative practices a lot. So we bring kids in together and talk about things as they happen. And then I get the parents involved. I really reach out and make sure that the parents are aware of what the real story is of what happened. At least sometimes I feel like I have an investigator hat also. But we address it immediately instead of trying to let anything kind of brew. One of the things that brings all of our kids together is almost all of our kids in Dixon are from poverty. At least most of the students struggle with money. You don't have some of the significant differences in that regard that you have in bigger districts. So they don't pick on each other for some of those types of things that they might get picked on for. So. But like I said, we have it situationally. Every now and then something will happen. And I always find that when a new kid comes, that's when it usually pops up again. And it's either the new kid who's instigating or the new kid who there might be a bit of a ripple effect for trying to figure out whose voice gets heard at one time.
Yeah, Terry, hot water and hugs, huh? Big change.
Actually, I took my wife, used to be the boys' bathroom, the unit bathroom, and the steps that go up to the stage to show her the hot water pipe that I jumped up and grabbed when Carmen Hernandez was chasing me, and how I ended up flipping upside down and landing on my head. So now that's my excuse. But it's gone.
I know.
You moved my hot water pipe.
I'm so sorry. Had I known it was notable, I would have brought it right over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you go to the West Coast, Krista, what's that trip?
So we've always made it a college and career trip. So the kids and the teacher research where they want to stop each year. So the very first year that we did that, they went through Seattle and they went to a glass blowing plant, and because the kids were very, very into art. And then we stopped at 3 different like US parks, landmarks. They camped this last year every step of the way, and met with some different people on the reservation out there along the way. But the focus on that one, and when they go to Yellowstone, and even when they went to like the Museum of the Rockies, instead of them just going in and having a docent walk them around or a guide walk them around and say, look at this, look at this, look at this, the kids are trained to ask, what training did you have to do the job that you're doing here? What training do you have? What kind of classes did you have to take? Where did you go to school? What kind of trade, program were you in when you learned this? So that they're not, I found that when they ask questions like that, they pay attention more too. than if somebody's just showing them the artifacts of what they're going to see. But we do try to get them to the coast so they can see the ocean. Yeah.
It's amazing how many children don't get to see the ocean or
Right.
even for that matter, make it up to Glacier Park or
Yeah.
Yellowstone Park.
And that's why we try to alternate it. When we first started doing it, we wanted to do Glacier, but it's hard to do Glacier in the spring because of the snow still. So we do end up going to the Yellowstone area because we wanted them to see one that they have a better chance of getting to with their family someday, and then one that makes them dream just a little bit bigger to go beyond.
Well, I'm jealous. I don't know what was with those Ronan administrators when I was going to school there. We didn't have, no. Blame my dad. But Martin?
Make the motion to accept the report from Dixon School. And thank you guys,
Yep.
appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Motion by Martin to accept the Dixon School report. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? Great job.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, great job.
Thank you for all your support. We appreciate
I was
it.
gonna tell Ben, we never had bully problems until Arlie came to play Dixon in basketball. That's when the bully showed up.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, Miranda. All right, any other items? Okay. Take a long lunch, okay. All right, we'll break for lunch. Ellie's leaving. Oh, you can? Okay. Might have to. Well, we'll see if Mike comes back in. We'll be okay. Yeah. I think, I don't know how long Mike's conference call is. We'll check and see. We'll let you know if you have to. I'll text you. Yeah. Zoom in.
I'll jump on it.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll see you back here at 1.